be able to see right there in front of you. What you should be able to see is the chat button. So make sure and get plenty of interaction happening in there. That's where the start of online networking can take place. We also have the Q&A function as well for when our speakers join you later on. And of course, you can tweet, and we really encourage you to tweet at EmpowerConf. So hashtag EmpowerConf as well as hashtag CUA Alliance. Okay. Now I'm going to remind you of that many times, but to get our session off to a great start this morning, can I hand you over first and foremost to Sandra Nolan-Dively from Empower. Sandra, over to you.
Good morning, Susan. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 4th Empower Explore event. This is our 2nd time hosting this event online. Now, as many of you know, Empower was set up in 2017, and the goal of Empower is to fast-track female entrepreneurship in the region. I want to welcome and say a big thank you to all from the European Social Fund and the Department of Justice and Equality for funding Empower. When I think about Empower, there are really 3 elements to it. There's the delivery of the programme, there's the role of normalising female entrepreneurship, and also the sense that we are building a community. So we're very proud to say at Empower that to date, we have delivered programs to just under 100 female founders in the region. We have had 60 people on the START program and 37 people on the Growth program. And we are very happy to welcome another 14 new established business entrepreneurs onto our Growth program this June. So I want to give a very big warm welcome to all past, present, and potentially some future Empower participants to this morning's event. I also want to say a big welcome and thank you to all the people who are joining us today from the different state agencies and different organisations who have played a key role in supporting Empower. Through these different people who have supported us, we have been able to give additional mentoring, additional training to our participants. There's also been great support in relation to, as we call it, opening doors, making connections and making introductions. I also want to welcome and thank the many guest speakers we've had on the Empower programs over the years, particularly the entrepreneurs who've come and shared their stories and given great advice on their entrepreneurship journey. So thank you so much, and you're very welcome today. And I am particularly looking forward to the people who have joined us this morning at our conference. Now, when I mentioned community, there was an established women in business. There was many established women in business networks before Empower came. Network Ireland have it across many counties in the region. We have Sligo Women in Business, Donegal Women in Business, and just last year Awaken Hub was set up. So I want to say you're all very welcome for joining us today. And I also want to thank you for welcoming Empower and for showcasing us within your members so that we can all work together and collaborate together to fast track female entrepreneurship in the region. And just finally, I just want to say on behalf of Maria, Michelle, and I, and many of the mentors and trainers on the Empower program, it has been such a pleasure to work with these female founders. They have shown excellent resilience, innovation, and amazing passion to drive their businesses forward, particularly in the difficult trading environment we found ourselves in the last year and a half. And I have to say, it has been so inspiring to watch how they have worked with each other, supported each other, shared advice for each other, and built amazing, strong relationships. And I suppose there's an expression that's been coined over the last year, which it says we are now becoming, as we say, the Empower tribe. So I hope you all enjoy today's event, and I hope you find it beneficial. And with that, I'm going to say thank you, enjoy your day, and I'll hand back over to Susan.
And I have to say, you've all got up and running here to a great start. Good morning to Michelle. Janine also sends in a message here on chat. Fran says hello. Lisa says hello. Sylvia says hello. Anna says hello. And she mentions her business as well, Little Red Edu. So make sure and pop your businesses in there as well. Lucy says good morning from sunny Cork. Fidelma says hello from a blue sky in Galway, etc. Now, I'm able to confirm that that is absolutely the case. So keep them coming. Absolutely keep them coming. And I see Val here is also on Twitter. So just again to remind you that it's hashtag EmpowerConf and also hashtag CUA Alliance. Okay. And so please keep them coming. I have all sorts of devices here in front of me to keep a good eye on you. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen between now and our coffee break. And then after that, I'm going to take you through what's going to happen later on in the day. So we're going to start off with an opening address from Dr. Orla Flynn, President of GMIT, and of course with the announcement today of all of the CAO options right around the country. Of course, it's a really big day for our universities, the length and breadth of the country, so we're very grateful to have her. After that, live from Paris, we are going to have Anne Ravanona. She is the founder and CEO of Global Investor. She's going to take us through the funding menu, and she's going to have a really super interactive session with everybody. And then after that, we are going to have a pitch competition. Now, that is where the power is in your hands. You are going to hear from three people who are going to pitch, and then we are going to hand it over to you in order to vote who wins that competition. Then after that, Anne, who is the master of all pitches, is going to give us some feedback on what she has seen. Then we're going to have a coffee break before we move into another session focusing on freedom, flexibility, business growth and blockchain. So settle in, you're in for an action-packed morning. Now, before I ask Dr. Orla Flynn to join us, I'm just going to ask the team here, can you please share the screen? And can you share a Mentimeter link, please, in the chat so that everybody can engage? So I'm just going to ask the team to share the screen. And to then, what you'll see is a question that we wanted to pose to you, first and foremost. And then what we're going to do is we're going to ask everyone to share your thoughts, because we do know, of course, that we are at now another stage in the COVID-19 and the lockdown journey in the country. And what we wanted to ask you is this question: what positive thing do you want to see embedded into normality following on from what we learned in lockdown? So that link, if I could ask please for that to all be shared in the chat. Now, if you can't access this through the link, you can, of course, go to the instructions at the top of the screen, which is www.menti.com, and use the code 9248 9630. So I'm just going to let that happen there for a moment. And we're just going to see then what positive things that you want to see embedded into normality following on from what we learned in lockdown. So I'm just going to give you a moment there to think about that. Okay, so, and I'm going to ask Dr. Orla Flynn, she's soon going to be joining me. So the first answer in here is self-care. Greater work-life balance has also come in here as well. Let's also see what other people are going. We are now, there's lots and lots. So online meetings. It was just interesting here in studio, before we went live, we were just talking about how useful hybrid meetings can be. Okay, now there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots coming. Lots. Okay, brilliant. Flexibility is the one word that's jumping out here most. So flexibility, 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 flexible working, hybrid meetings, innovative thinking. This is going to be, I'm really interested to ask Dr. Orla Flynn to comment on this. So with that, please do keep your questions coming in, or please do keep your answers coming in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Dr. Orla Flynn to take to the podium. And while she's doing that, I'm just going to ask the team to make sure that the answers that are appear on the screen in front of us as well. Wonderful. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed for that. That is really interesting. So flexibility, self-care, hybrid working, etc. That is what I hear people are really interested in preserving from lockdown. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Orla Flynn, President of GMIT.
Blair. It's Misha Orlany Line, Uachtaráin in Institute Technoleach na Galva agus Muyo. And I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking a few words here this morning at this Empower Explore event run by our Innovation Hub's colleagues. And just want to say well done to the whole team, and you know, really terrific morning ahead, and best of luck to all the participants later on as well in the pitching. The Empower programme, as you know, is delivered by our Mayo iHub in close collaboration with our Connacht Ulster Alliance partners, technological university partners in IT Sligo and in Letterkenny IT. And before I reflect a little bit on today's topics, I just want to let you all know that in May of this year, after months and years of preparation and working closely together, the Connacht Ulster Alliance partners submitted an application to become a technological university. We hosted an international panel in July, and their role was to challenge and test our application. We should know the outcome of that process in a couple of weeks. Well, weeks or months, I suppose, really, but definitely within hopefully the next 6 to 8 weeks. And all going well, we should be designated a technological university sometime in early 2022. But events like today's and this morning's serve us well, and they remind us of our vision for the new technological university, harnessing our collective strengths for the benefit of stakeholders in the region, even if those collective strengths are distributed across our 8 campuses throughout the northern and western region. Those strengths are in our teaching and learning activities, they're in our research centres, and they're most definitely in our engagements with industry across a whole range of interfaces. Today's event focuses on a couple of really interesting topics, and you have some super speakers lined up today. I had the great privilege of hearing Brenda Romero speaking in Cork a couple of years ago, and she's absolutely inspiring, as indeed are all the speakers. There's an underlying theme, though, if we look beyond the sharp technical focus of venture capital and blockchain. And Professor Joyce O'Connor recently highlighted for me exactly what that was. And for me, it's about striving to achieve a just world. And you might feel that that's a bit of a leap, but bear with me. Deploying blockchain technologies to achieve social inclusion is one theme, again, that you might not be expecting to hear about today, but again, I wouldn't be surprised. There will be a few surprises up Professor O'Connor's sleeve, and it is a real focus for many of the blockchain applications globally today. After a phenomenal weekend for women's sport, whether it was the achievement of our Paralympians, Europe's success at the Solemn Cup, or the stunning All-Ireland success of the Meath ladies football team, it's important to reflect that globally, it's not a just world. Hard-won equalities are being eroded all over the world, and we can't afford to be complacent. We see well-off societies, and I mean well-off not just in financial terms, as being just societies with underlying principles of equality. There's ample evidence that female-led companies tend to perform well financially, but they also tend to promote diversity and inclusion. So why don't we see more of them if they're good for society? And this is also a topic that you'll be hearing a lot more of later this morning. So finally, as I was driving in this morning, I'm hearing there about sun in Galway and hopefully sun everywhere else in the country. It was actually very foggy as I was driving in. But one of the brilliant things about driving through a foggy morning is that you know it's going to be followed by a beautiful sunny day. And for us, as we emerge from the fog of the last 18 months, you'd like to think that we've the confidence that there is sunshine going to follow. But that really gives us the opportunity, and it challenges us to renew our efforts to create the kind of just society, harnessing technologies, but the kind of just society that will see our regions and indeed our country truly thrive. And that's it for me. I wish you a wonderful morning. Gormagh, August O'Reilly.
Thank you so much indeed, Orla. And I have to say, you know, I have heard Dr. Orla Flynn speak on a number of occasions at this stage, and every time I'm intrigued at how she can draw from business, sport, and even the weather to give us words of inspiration right here this morning, live from Galway. So to move from a foggy, yes indeed, and a warm west of Ireland, we're going to be soon moving into the capital of France, right over to Anne Ravanona. But before we do that, just because we had such a really super reaction there to our first question, where we asked you what positive things did you want to embed into normality arising from what we learned in lockdown. We're also going to ask you another question just to get a sense of where people are at on their funding journey. So again, can I ask the team please to share the screen, and if you could, to then please make sure that we now share our second question. Okay, so our second question is asking, where are you at in terms of the funding menu? Okay, so I'm just going to ask the team, if we just move on one slide there. So if you just move on one slide to the right there on our Mentimeter. And so if you just press the right hand arrow, we'll get that right across. And what we're going to do then is we're going to ask you that question. Okay, yep, there we go. So if we could now just run that, and we would really love to hear your answer to this question. So what stage are you at when it comes to your funding journey? Because as I say, when we hand over to Anne, she is going to take you all around the funding menu, but we just particularly are interested to hear where you personally are at. So I'm just going to give you a moment there to answer that. Okay, okay. Interesting there. Okay, so We have some people at almost every stage. Okay. Almost every stage. Let's just going to hear it from others. And I also see that we have some people as well who are sending their own experience there into the chat. So let's just see where people are at. Again, by the way, just in case you missed the link on how to join Mentimeter, if you go up to the top of the screen, you'll see there. If you go to www.menti.com and then use the code 92489630, you will be able to participate in that. Okay, so what we can see is that people are, generally speaking, at an early stage of where they're at in their journey. Okay, that seems to be where people are at. And then we also have some people who've started raising money, some people who've applied for funding avenues, some people who've taken some action. And then we also have one person as well who's had early conversations. Okay, so on that note, I am now going to introduce Anne Ravanona. Like I mentioned, she is CEO of Global Investor. And she's going to join us live from Paris for a very interactive session right here on Zoom. She's going to talk about the specific steps that you can take to progress, how to find your allies and build your tribe in this way. Bienvenue, Anne, over to you.
Merci. Hello, wonderful Galway, Ireland, and welcome from Paris. I sound a bit like the Eurovision. Well, why not? Isn't that a great symbol of Europe and all of us working together? So today I'm going to be sharing quite a few tips and tricks. I want you to hold on to your seatbelts, everybody, because this is going to be an interactive session. I am here to serve you and to share as much as I can about this whole funding game, this funding journey, so that you go away knowing a lot more than you did before you started. And thank you very much, Susan, for sharing the poll. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to invite you when we are, as I am talking, if we could please share any of your reactions to what I'm going to say. I'd love you to share them in the chat box. I know we're using the other tool for other things, but for me, here in the chat box is where I can actually, I'm going to follow what you're saying. All right. So are you with me? If you are, type yes. I think you've had your coffee. If you haven't had your coffee or tea, you're going to be. Everybody's rest. Okay. So let us go. Let's move forward. Okay. So I want to start off by asking, who are you? Okay, I want to know how many of you in the audience have already set up your business. So if you already set up your business, say yes, 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 yes. Tell me now. Okay, and if you haven't, just say no, that's fine, or not yet, totally allowed. Brilliant. Okay, so we're talking to a lot of people who've already taken that plunge, so congratulations. I love it. Catherine's putting in her URL, not yet Louise and not yet Anne-Marie, but I love it that I love it's the not yet, because that means you're going to do it. Okay, so I think you're going to get a lot out of this session. Why should you even bother listening to me? Well, I am a woman entrepreneur like all of you. I'm in the same seat as you, and as well as that, I'm an advocate for us, for women entrepreneurs around the world. And I set up my company, Global Investor, 13 years ago to help demystify the whole funding journey about just everything about funding, specifically for women entrepreneurs, because 13 years ago, nobody was talking about this stuff. There were not all these programs. And I was just like, okay, we gotta solve this problem. And I learned that this access to finance and this funding piece is a big, big issue. And I'm not going to scare you with the statistics because we're here to be positive. I'm going to give you loads of good juice for moving forward. But why should you listen to me? Because I am, yeah, Sylvia, it is a mysterious secret. It is like a dark art. I've given some speeches and topics where I call it like demystifying the dark art of funding. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow, this morning in this session. Not tomorrow, that would not be good. So why you should talk to me, you can check out, I've done a TEDx talk on this, but also I'm an advocate for us at policy level on a global level. I've just come back from the G20, the very first Women's Empowerment Conference in Italy 2 weeks ago, where I was representing the W20, which is the engagement group for women to the G20. Where we're saying to the G20 countries, oi, you got to put these policies in place to help women entrepreneurs. And of course, I was pushing the access to finance piece. So that's why you should listen to me. But most importantly, and I think you hear it, I'm passionate about this. I'm here for you. I care about this deeply, and I want to leave the world a better place when it comes to access to funding for women entrepreneurs. So what do you already know about funding? We've already done the poll, which is excellent. And I can see it's kind of mixed. There's lots of different people here, which is good. And some of you have already dipped a toe into it. You've started to watch things, some of you have already started fundraising, which is excellent, and we're going to do some more. Not much yet, says Sarah. Don't you worry, Sarah, you're in the right place. You're going to know a lot more about it at the end of it. So, okay, very first, and it's this important question, how do you feel about this whole process about looking for funding? Type it in the chat box. Tell me exactly how do you feel. For those of you who haven't done it yet, what's your feeling about it? Nervous, overwhelming, nauseous, whoa, lost, overwhelmed, quite daunting, insecure, excited, it's tough, intimidated, yeah, a pain, unsure what direction to go, naive, yeah, that's because you're just at the beginning, Rick. Positively challenged, I like that. Confused, time consuming. Seems like a lot of funding is for tech and product, not services. Yes, Michelle, that can be the case and certainly what people feel. Very demanding of your time, but actually good in terms of how it makes you look at your business. Right. And it feels like it's not for my business and out of my comfort zone. Okay, so that's very important. Thank you for sharing that, everybody. You see, isn't it fascinating? First of all, we're all in the same boat. All of the things that you feel about this whole funding process is something that a lot of women entrepreneurs feel around the world. So you are not alone, okay? That's the first thing. And it's normal because guess what? We're going to ask you to do things you haven't done before. And it's like going back to school, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it? It's literally, we're back to school time now. When you start going on this funding journey, hold on a second. You set up a company to solve a problem for a specific group of people. You didn't set up a company to go looking for funding. That's a whole different ball game. And so that's why we're going to teach you some tips and tricks today, and just to demystify this whole stuff. Okay. So before we start, because this is a very important question, and thanks for interacting with me here. When should you look for funding? When do you think you should be looking for funding? So type in the chat box, because it's right. What have you said earlier? Straight away, says Sylvia. Yeah. Only when you need it, says Trish. Regularly, all the time, says Rosie. Yeah. Oh, I mean, what I would say to you is whenever you can, says Michelle. I don't know, says Danny. Okay. So when should you look for funding? I think at key pivots on the journey. Yes, that's a good point. You can start making connections early on. It's a long process. When your business reaches the stage, your funding will allow you to grow and scale. When it's specific to your business, 9 to 12 months before you need it and before you need it. Okay, so we've got a mixed bag of answers, but you know what? You're all kind of right in different ways. So let me kind of phrase that. The first thing that's super important to kind of realize is, what kind of company do you want to become? If you want to become a company where you are hiring and you have a team of anything up to 20 people, 20 onwards is what we call employer companies. It's where it starts to really scale. But if you want to build up from beyond yourself and you want to create jobs in order to bring your product or service to the world, and it really is beyond yourself, that's when you got to start thinking about funding. And again, not every single type of business is adapted to it. So if you have a hairdressing salon or you want to set up a series of them in an area, that was one kind of mentality, one type of funding. If you have a tech company, that's another type of funding. If you have a consulting company, different types of funding. But what's important is to realize, and we're going to kind of pull back the veil on some of this stuff, that funding isn't for everybody, right? So you got to be clear what kind of company you want to become. That's very important. The very first thing, how big do you want to be? Do you want to be 5, 10, 20, 20 plus, 100 plus? Because depending on your growth trajectory and how you envision your company, that's going to influence the type of funding you're going to go. Does that make sense? Keep typing in the box because I like to hear. Okay. And so thank you, Sylvia. So yeah, before we begin, I want to share with you a really important message from this woman entrepreneur. So Reshma Shetty is a woman I interviewed maybe 2 or 3 years ago for the Huffington Post. And I loved what she said. She says, remember, fundraising, it's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. If there's one thing I want you to remember, it's that. This is a tool, all right? So it's a means to an end, not the end in itself. Your most important job is building your company, one that is doing something important. Does that make sense? I totally love it. And guess what? When I interviewed Reshma, she has a biotech firm. And when I interviewed her on her funding journey, she had already raised a lot of money, like several millions. And she says, I'm going to become a unicorn. We are going to become $1 billion company within 3 years. And guess what? She did it. I'm not saying to say everybody needs to be a unicorn, $1 billion company. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is her message really resonated with me. And I thought it was useful for you to hear it from a very, very successful woman entrepreneur, that funding is a means to an end. It's not all about it. And you know, often in the press, have you ever had this impression in the press, like looking for funding, these big fundraisers, all these guys and male entrepreneurs that we put on the cover of all the magazines? It's a real testosterone driven thing, isn't it? It's like, wow, raising the money, it's what it's all about. And it can be glorified, but it's more than that. I want you to think about it as a tool for your business, a tool to help you grow. So what does this look like? The first thing to say is that, good news, this whole funding stuff, it's a game. And guess what? You can learn a game. All right. Does that sound funny to you that this funding is a game? I mean, earlier on, people are saying, I'm intimidated by this, I'm overwhelming, I feel naive, I don't know. Ugh. I want you to approach this. This is a game and you can learn how to play it. And guess what? In the funding game, there are rules, there are players, and there's the prize. And we're going to go through all of these different things so that you'll have a better understanding of this funding game by the end of our session. So the rules, I'm going to share some of the rules. There's certain things you got to do and certain steps you got to go through that you just can't compress or you just can't skip, right? There are some rules that everybody is held accountable to, whether you're a male or a female entrepreneur. There are the players. Who are the players? Who do you think are the players? So they are the entrepreneurs looking for the funding. They are the investors, who are the ones who have the money bags and who can give them the funding. There are like the governments, there are your clients, there are your partners. There's so many players in this funding game that it's important to kind of identify them and then build a relationship with them. And the prize. So that's why I wanted to share Reshma's message earlier. Funding is it's a means to an end, not to an end to itself. In this funding game, funding is a prize. The money is the prize. The network, the knowledge of your investors is the prize. But mainly, that's why there's a picture of rocket on this. It's rocket fuel. Funding and this funding game is all about getting rocket fuel, getting money as a tool, as fuel to fuel your growth, to build your business. That makes sense? Yes. And Claire is saying competition. Yep, they're part of the players. You got it, Claire. All of this is part of this funding game. Okay. So now let's kind of go into more detail. I would love to kind of give you this framework to think about funding. So funding is a perspective, like a mindset. I had to have 3 Ps, so I changed it to perspective. So it's a perspective, a mindset. It's a process. Everybody needs to go through this process. And it's a performance. That's where the pitch stuff comes in and the relationship building comes in. All right, so let's look at each of these things. The first thing to say is that funding is all about a mindset. It's a perspective. And that's why I've put the key words here: people, peers, and partners. The first thing that you need to kind of demystify is funding isn't about accounting and finance and hard conversations. At the end of the day, funding is about people. Okay, it's about relationships that you build with people. And when I say peers, the next part, the peers, I want you to, in any of your interactions with potential funders, and they could be banks, they could be government bodies like the Leo offices. They can be angel investors, venture capitalists, and I'm going to explain what all of those are. But really, whenever you are entering into a conversation with potential investors, I really want you to go in there feeling that they are my peers. We are at the same level. They're not up here and we're down here because I'm the entrepreneur looking for the money. Yes, there's a power game, but guess what? They are peers who are actually looking for great companies to fund and to invest in. Wouldn't you agree? So really what's important is, like, you need to be going into the mindset, okay, I want to talk to my peers and they are my potential partners. Okay, very important. My investors are partners. If they're the right investors for me and my company, they're going to help me to grow. So I want you to go in thinking about that. They are people, peers, and partners. That's part of it. Now, all right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, right? I did say that funding is a process. And really what is super important is to see this slide is, I hope, going to be really, really important for you all to remember. So take screenshots if you're not. This is one of them. And I will be sending, of course, these slides to the Empower Her team, so you can ask them for them afterwards, just to reassure you all. Okay, so I mentioned that this funding game is a process. And there are 5 key steps. These are the 5 key steps that I have identified from working with women entrepreneurs for the past 9 years. Okay, I have interviewed hundreds of them about how they actually got the money. I have been a coach to many of them. I've been a judge in pitch competitions. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at INSEAD Business School, etc., etc., etc. So over the years, I've distilled this into the funding process into these 5 key steps. So the first one is, you need to understand this funding game, and that's what we're talking about at this point. Who are the rules? What are the rules? Sorry. Who are the players? What's the process? What's the prize? The second one is, we need to understand the funding menu, which are the sources of funding, and we're going to look at that. The third one is, you need to then, once you understand the game and the players, you understand the sources of funding that are out there, then you need to start thinking, okay, who's going to be the right investor, the right funder for me? Does that make sense? Keep chatting to me in the chat box, because I know you're hanging on to my words, but I love to see you're still there. So once you've understood, thanks, Emma, once you understand the funding menu, then find the right investor. Then in parallel, while you're looking to find the funding, finding the right investor, you have to have your funding toolkit ready. So let's come back to that. The funding, you have to find the right investors, which means you have to do your homework. This is a process and it's work. Part of the rules of the game is you got to do some work on this, and you have to do your investor research, and you have to study them by sector, by stage, and by geography, because investors like to invest that way. They invest in business opportunities by sector, by stage, and by geography. So keep that in mind. The funding toolkit is around, okay, what are the tools that I'm going to need to interact with those potential investors? I'm going to need my pitch deck, I'm going to need my exec summary, and my financials. And then once you've got those things, you need to build your funding strategy, right? I'm going to raise this type of money, this type of round, and then what's my actual action plan? How am I going to do it? Thanks, Marianne. She says a great diagram. And Trish is saying, worth looking at who gives the biggest percentage. If it's a grant, it's 70% better, 50% better than 50%, even if there are more hopes to jump through. Trish, we're going to go through the funding menu, and we're going to talk about the different sources and the pros and cons of the different sources. Okay, so good points. So love what you're sharing. Okay, so I want you to remind yourself, this is the process. This is the journey that you're going to go on if you decide to go for funding. What is the funding menu? Susan said earlier, I'm going to share this funding menu with you. So these are the sources of funding, the different sources of funding, and that's why I call it the funding menu, that exist to help you fuel your business. And that's why at the very beginning, I said, what type of business do you want to become? Because depending on the type of business you want to become, that's going to influence the type of sources of funding you're going to look at. Okay, does that make sense? So you'll see I've put a blue line to the right, because I'm going to go through these different sources of funding, what they are. because the ones to the further over to the left, all the way to the right, it's kind of according to your stage. If you're early stage, you want to be looking at all the sources of funding, and I can see my little blue dot moving. So everything that's to the left of the blue line. When you're in the growth stage, that's when you're going to be looking at the other stuff, right? So if we look at the sources of funding so far, these are the ones that actually women entrepreneurs use. And these are the ones I have studied the funding journeys of highly successful women entrepreneurs who've raised a lot of money, the millions and the gazillions, okay? And these are things that they have used. What's important to know is that just because you've got the whole menu doesn't mean you need to eat everything, does it? When you go to the restaurant, you're not going to pick everything there. You need to choose the menu items that you feel like it, but also in our case for funding that makes sense to you. Does that make sense? So let's look at it. Microfinance is more for those early stage women entrepreneurs in developing countries that don't have access to these other tools. So I'm not going to talk about it here. The best source of funding, ladies and gentlemen, is a paying customer. Never forget it. If you can get as much money from your paying customers, that's the best thing. Then you don't have to give up your equity. You don't have to give up shares in your company. Very often when we begin, we start off by using our own savings, using our own credit cards just to keep us going, and maybe doing keeping our job full time or going part time as we build our business. Have any of you done that? Say who's used what so far. I want you to put in the sources you've done that. Yeah, Michelle says, without a business, we don't have. Yeah, we can't forget those paying customers. Never forget them. They're the number one. Right. So once you have those paying customers, usually that puts you in good stead to start thinking about getting a bank loan, right? Yeah, so Catherine says she kept her job. She's used savings. Eileen has used a part-time job. You see, super important, very important. So bank loans can be a really useful tool. Now, I want you to think, okay, when you think bank, you think debt. Ooh, I'm getting into debt. I don't want to have debt. Actually, when you're thinking of your funding menu, you want to be thinking about the two different families, two different, let's say, yeah, criteria. Debt instruments and equity. So debt is when you will get a loan and you got to pay it back, right? Equity is when investors put money into your company for shares, but you don't need to give the money back. You give them the money, they get the money back through dividends. They get it back through the profits, a share of the profits that you make. But when you get the money, when you give up equity, you do it in a different way. And it's important to have both. Deirdre says she's doing loans, works, consultancy, and paying customers and loan. Yeah, so in the early stages, this is, and me too. I came all this way up to bank loan, Then you'll see friends and family. Okay, what's friends and family around, guys? Type it in, friends and family. It's like the word suggests, that's when you get your, sometimes you see it as friends, family, and fools, but really it is the people who know and love you, who are willing to put the first level of investment into your company, right? And they kind of know that they're not going to get it back for 3 to 5 years, if at all. It's a high risk when you're early stage, but they can often be your very first round. And don't be fooled by it. Friends and family round can be quite substantial. It can be, so it is free help, yes, Marianne, but it's also money. That's when they actually invest into your company, and they will give you loans, although we'll actually take some shares in your company, right? So friend and family round is usually one of the first things you'll do when you're funding your company. So don't neglect it. Now, I know some entrepreneurs have said to me, I'm not comfortable taking money from my friends and family. I want to be able to sit down at Christmas dinner and be able to look them in the face and not feel that they're like judging me and saying, okay, when am I getting my money back? You know, so there's that. So just think about it. Does it feel right for you? If you can, if you do have friends and family, and when I say friends, former employers, former colleagues, people you work with in associations, in your bigger network, you need to look at that. Then you need to look at grants, foundations. Now, one of you earlier on, forgot your name, I'm sorry, because I'm looking at the chat as it comes, mentioned grants. Grants are a great tool to get you some funding. Now, and you could say, oh, it's free money, it's grant. Now, it's not as simple as that. I would say the pros is it's free money, you don't have to pay it back. The cons are that it's very time consuming to fill in those grant applications, very time consuming. Sometimes you have to fill them in over and over and over several times before you get a grant. Also, with some grants for a significant amount of money, it's a drawdown mechanism. So they only give you the money once you've spent it. So you have to have enough money to invest in your marketing, in your recruitment, etc. And once you've got the bills to show it, then they give you the money. So yes, look at grants, go into it with your eyes open and know there's a lot more to it than just applying, right? Then look at government bodies. Of course, Enterprise Ireland comes straight away. Now, they have different programs. I'm not going to go through them now, but what's very important is for you to say, state bodies have great, the Leo programs and so on. Do check them out. What can you apply for? Are there innovation grants at the very early stage, research grants that you can apply for? And then later on, when you're in the growth stage, what can you go for? So Trish, I mentioned grants, and it is very time consuming. They can be very small or limited. They can cause cash flow issues too, but are worth looking at which ones offer more than 50%, such as Leader if you're in a rural or a disadvantaged region. Thanks, Trish, for sharing that. So check that out. Okay. New Frontiers is also a great option. Yes, Tony, totally agree. So check out those resources in the chat. And guess what, guys? You can record the chat. Press the little 3 buttons there beside the smiley face and it says save chat. So you don't have to take notes about all this. You can keep all those precious resources we're sharing in the chat. Okay, so government bodies, then we go to crowdfunding. Now crowdfunding, there are different types of crowdfunding, but it's a great tool to raise money. And guess what? Women entrepreneurs are highly successful at it because there's a lot of storytelling, relationship building. Now, there are different types of crowdfunding, donation-based, where people donate to a cause, right? Without anything. There's reward-based, where like you pay in advance for a product or a service that's being developed, but you're going to get something. And then there's equity. So that's when you exchange, you put money into the pot, the crowdfunded pot, in exchange for a percentage of the company. It's very interesting to check out crowdfunding, and I want you to know you cannot go into it lightly. Crowdfunding, doing a crowdfunding campaign takes about 3 months preparation. And actually we have a whole course on that at Global Invest here that you can check out, to really, from somebody who's done 5 of them, the whole gamut, and very successfully. But I would just say crowdfunding is a great tool. Check it out. It takes a lot of time. Do not then, let's look at accelerators. Where they empower her women here at the GMIT Accelerator. Yes, fantastic. Awaken Hub have just started a new accelerator. There's several female founder programs on the island of Ireland, and then in other good countries, like also in the UK. And now with COVID, lots of things are going online, which actually makes it easier for women entrepreneurs to apply. Because actually the fact that a lot of us are mothers, I am too, it's tricky. So do check out accelerator programs. They put you through this boot camp, usually about 3 months, through some kind of several hoops you have to go through. And at the end of it, they have a thing called a demo day where you pitch to investors and you can potentially raise quite a lot of money. Check out the best accelerators in Ireland. It's worth it, but you got to really do your homework, because again, you have to invest 3 months of your life and every day in that accelerator. Pitch competitions, great way to get free money and visibility, because a lot of pitch competitions in Ireland and internationally will give you money. And I know one woman entrepreneur, she raised $200,000 just by winning pitch competitions. Seriously. So it is something to look at. Don't neglect it. If you get good at your pitching, which you'll need to anyway, check it out. Then we have the angel investors. What's an angel investor, guys? Thanks, Sandra. She's sharing the Westbic with the Competitive Start Fund. And Anne is talking about NDRC Pre-Accelerator, which is amazing. That's great. Share your resources in the chat. So angel investors are private investors who invest their personal money into your company. So it's a person like you and me who's investing some of their hard-earned cash into your company. And they're also investing their time, their energy, their network. So angel investors are they tend to, so they're private investors. They can sometimes be in groups called syndicates or in networks, angel networks. So you need to check those out. But you need to know that angels come in all shapes and sizes, and some of them have experience and some don't. So you want to be careful when you're looking at the angels that you want to potentially get funding from. You know, if you look for the ones who've got the experience, right? Make sure, how do you find angels? Yes. How do you find, okay, LinkedIn, yes, Anna. LinkedIn is a great place. Angel List, I'm going to type it in. The places to find them: Angel List, Gust, Crunchbase. These are all fantastic resources. Astia, loads of other stuff, and Sinead's sharing stuff with from Awaken Hub, their accelerator. That's super. I'm so proud of you, Sinead, and Mary, and everybody on the team there. So angel investors, they have many different, there are many type of them, and there are now many networks that are women angel investors. So check them out. Astia is one of them. Golden Seeds is another one. There are many. Go Beyond, I'd like you to check out Go Beyond. It's an European angel investment network, and definitely check them out. Denise McQuaid, an Irish woman, is the CEO there. I'm not saying it's going to get you investment, but it always helps. She's super. Sifted as well. Deal Room, excellent resources, Helena. That's where you're going to hear what goes on. And I'll share the link to our newsletter to learn more about, because we share sources of funding every single week in the GIH newsletter, which is free. The other later stage source of funding are venture capitalist funds, and they are professional investors. There's a big difference, like they're professional investors investing bigger amounts of money, and they have to have higher returns. So they need a minimum 10 times return on their investment. So they only invest in the high growth companies that are sure to take off, right? So that's what VCs are. And family offices, like the name suggests, these are kind of special investment offices for very, very rich families. So if you can imagine the O'Reilly family is very wealthy. Other big international families, they have a thing called a family office who manage their wealth, and part of that goes into high growth entrepreneurs as private equity as well. So this is some of the funding menu. We can't go into mega detail here, but at least you now know all the things you have to look at. So Trish, okay, Caroline, since she can't save the chat, maybe Susan will pick that up and see if you can do it. I can do it on my end, maybe because I'm a panelist. Trish wants, if you want to access to expertise more than funding, is it still worth going angel investors? So yes, Trish, but then in that case, they're not angel investors. If you want advice, you can get advisors on board, and you can tap into angel investors for advice who don't invest in your company. Yes, you can. And in fact, you need to be looking at investors because they bring a lot more than just money. Okay. So now let's kind of go through, what do investors look for, right? Because I want to run through these things to make sure you got the meat. They want to know who you are, what you are, like what you're building, and what's your why, who are you serving, why are you building this company, how are you, and then the how are you building it, what are the things you need to look at, right? So these are the key things, the DNA of a deal, I call it. These are the key things that the company wants, that investors want to know about you, your company, and your context. They want to know who you are, your background, who's on your team. They want to know who are you serving, who are your customers. They want to know what are you building, like in what sector, what are you trying to do? You want to know your big why. Why are you doing this? Why is it important to you? And why are you the right team for them to move this company forward? And then how you're doing it. What are your key milestones on that journey? So check out this slide, keep it in mind. I wanted to share, more importantly, what they don't want, because that's a very important thing. The major turnoffs are these ones. I think it's super important for you to know this. They hate it when you don't know your numbers. So you need to know your numbers. And when you're presenting your financials, you need to say, these are the assumptions behind them. If you have an unrealistic valuation, that's kind of, if you kind of go in saying, I'll give you 5% of my company, but you have to pay $500,000. What? That values your company at several millions, and it's not realistic. So that's the valuation game. We can't go into detail here, but I don't like when you have an unrealistic valuation. You need to know the size of your market. Somebody mentioned competition earlier on, and that's very important. And this is in the players. You have to say who your competitors are. If you are a game changer and you're creating a new segment, you may not have direct competitors, but you'll have indirect competitors. It's how are people solving that problem now without you? So you need to have your competitors on that side. So people who come in and have no competitors, it's rubbish. Thanks, Helena. She's put in the H-band, Halo, and all that good stuff there. Super, super, super. Investors hate it when you don't answer questions, when you play the weak victim, or when you're too arrogant. Hate that too. They hate it if you lie or exaggerate information. Women don't tend to do this, but I'm just giving you the general stuff, and if you're not coachable. So that's what they don't want. Now, we were going on our journey, and here we are to the performance. So in the performance, we need to, so basically in the performance piece, this is the whole part we said was it is a perspective, it's a process, and a performance. The performance is the pitch, okay? Remember, when you're pitching, you got to pitch your business opportunity, not the products and services. You're pitching your company, an opportunity to invest in your company to help grow your company. Very important how you go in with this, with the pitch. And you need to be pitch ready, not pitch perfect. Please don't spend hours making beautiful slides if when you deliver it, it doesn't come across, right? So make sure you practice on that. So these are 2 key tips on the pitch. Here are the 12, 15 key slides you need to have in your pitch. We won't have time to go through them in detail, but you'll have them on the slide. So you'll see these are the key, this is the key information you need to have on your pitch, because they help the investors to analyze your business opportunity. And good news, those key things are usually in your business plan that you will have built at the beginning before building your company or as you build it. A key thing on the pitch thing is you need to practice, practice, practice. So yes, get the pitch slides ready, but then you need to get your mental ready. You need to practice, you need to get feedback. And I would really suggest you do some role plays, you know, video yourself. It's torture. Listen, nobody likes looking at themselves. It's torture. But that's a key thing. And wear what you're going to wear on the day, get into it. Okay, can we go back to the 12 slides? Yep, let me go back to that here. Okay, let me pause here for a second. So the key, if you see, this is kind of the journey you're going to take your investors on. So the cover slide needs to have, in one sentence, needs to have your logo in one sentence, what you do for whom. So you say, we're a B2B marketplace making fabulous coffee for busy moms, for example. You need to have the one liner about what is your company. And that can be on the cover slide or on a slide on its own. Then you need to talk about the problem. How big is the problem? Who are you solving? What's the total addressable market? Why are you the right people to solve this problem? Why do you care? Then you go into the market size. So you say, this is the problem. This is why it's and how big it is. This is important. The how big it is the next slide as well, which is on the market size, because depending on the type of investor you're looking at, they'll only talk to you if you're going for big markets, right? So you have to talk about the market size. Then you say, and here's our solution. So we started off, here's the problem. Here's how big an opportunity is in the market it is for this problem. Here's our solution, how we're going to solve that problem. Here's how it works. So you can show slides, do a demo. Here are our customers. This is when you need to show traction. This is the traction piece. Here are our customers, our metrics, who we're serving, our revenues, the key milestones, the KPIs, the key performance indicators. Very important now in see, because this is how you can see this is a business pitch. It's not about the product. Here are our competitors, the direct and indirect. Here are our killer USP, our unique selling points. What makes us different to all the other people there? For example, I'm wearing woman entrepreneur, Melissa Curvy, wonderful Irish woman entrepreneur, swell bottles with the Wonder Woman, but the swell bottles, these are women entrepreneurs. You kind of need to say, okay, who are your competitors? Who are your direct and indirect competitors? What are your key USPs? What's your business model? Meaning, how are you going to make money? What's your go-to-market strategy? That's the marketing piece. This is how we're going to use our social media. This is how we're going to use partnerships, etc., etc. Who's on our team? And the team slide can be earlier or later. If you've got a really strong team, put it in earlier. Our ask. How much are you asking for? Super important. Please never put a pitch or do a pitch where you don't ask for money. Please don't. Otherwise, don't pitch. Okay. And one of you mentioned, Anna Carmody was saying, you know, what about women entrepreneurs not asking for enough money? I see it all the time, unfortunately. I see women entrepreneurs asking for 500,000 all over the world. They kind of settled on one figure. You need to figure out how much money you need to keep you going for 18 to 24 months. And then you put that figure. And if it is over $1 million, don't be scared of it. You could say, and I will raise it in different tranches. So I'll get the first 500K here, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. In the pitch stuff, coming back to that, I wanted you to say you need to practice. That's super important. But the other key thing is you got to prepare the questions. The Q&A section with the investors is super important. So you got to prepare those tough questions. Really, what are the tough ones you don't want to get? Make sure you do that. And really prepare those answers. So remember, we've been here. We've talked about the funding game, the funding menu, how to find the right investor, the funding toolkit. We've talked a little bit about the pitch deck, and then the funding strategy and action plan you need to build on your own, right? So very important as we come into the last few minutes. How are you going to do all that stuff we just did? You got to build your tribe, okay? Tony's saying expects questions on competition, be prepared. Yes, Tony, on competition and on lots of other stuff. You need to know your competitors, you need to know your markets, your products. Lou is saying, my clients love it when we turn their pitching nerves into excitement. They outsource the worry. Yeah, it's true. So when you're nervous, pitch it, channel it and say, okay, I'm going to outsource the worry. I like that. Thanks, Lou. Okay, so I want you to build your tribe. How are you going to play this funding game? You're going to build your tribe. You cannot do it alone. And there are credible resources at your fingertips. So I've mentioned our friends at Awaken Hub because they are on Ireland serving Irish women entrepreneurs. Of course, the Empower program goes without saying, couldn't be not be there. Global Invest Her, I'm going to share some of the resources we have. Most of them are free, so check them out. Meetups. You can see lots of local meetups online and so on that are about funding and women entrepreneurs. Eventbrite. Since COVID, many webinars have gone online and events have gone online. So you need to kind of check out that as well. Have some call outs for you. And of course, do not forget LinkedIn. Now, I want to say one thing. We talked about networking here. You need to use, I want to give you a story. When I was on a webinar, I was a guest, I was just an attendee like you are today. I was a participant and I was listening to 4 big venture capitalists in the US speaking. And I was in there chatting in the chat box, giving my comments and sharing my LinkedIn and sharing my link to my company. Say, yes, we do that. We're trying to work that. And I said, it's super important to chat in the chat box. You can network with so many people here. What happened was, as I was chatting, people started to notice, oh, she's saying some interesting things. Oh, who is she? And because I put my LinkedIn a few times into it, on the back of that one participation, I was able to set up interviews with 5 investors after one participation, just because I was sharing my knowledge. I was saying, who I am, whom I'm serving, and I made a call. I said, I want to be talking to you. And they came back to me, right? So use the chat box when you come to these things. Build your tribe also when you're doing these things, okay? Anna is saying, little off point, something no one talked to me about, even coming off many programs, is company structure, how the limited company is set up in terms of share price before taking on investment. Most people set up €100 share price at first. Yeah, so the whole cap table stuff, Anna, we're not going to have time, unfortunately, to go into it here, but it is really important to, to be careful of who you take on as a co-founder. Be careful of how much money a percentage you give to the co-founders. Always make sure that you've well over 51%. A guiding principle is this. On each of your rounds of funding, you want to give up no more than 15% maximum of your capital. That's why you need to have 100% or 90% before you start, right? You need to, or a high percentage. Don't take my numbers as gospel, please. It's different for everybody. See, Michelle's doing there. She's saying she's happy to connect. That's it. Come on, guys, put in your LinkedIn, connect with everybody in. Okay. And Eileen is saying a lot of her network has been created from webinars and following up with connections I've made at events. So please do it, right? So that's why you need to build your tribe. Here are some resources we have built for you at Global Invest Her. So I've put the LinkedIn, the URLs here as well. So we have built many things with loads of free webinars, podcasts, newsletter. We have created a directory, which is a global directory of women entrepreneurs so that you can be found by investors and by clients. Okay, so check it in here. I am putting it in the link Now check out the directory. You can apply to be featured. We have over 1,000 women from 50 countries and 75 sectors in there. And very soon we're coming out with our directory of list of all of investors. So stay tuned, check us out there, okay? We also have a community that you can check out the investor community of all the links here. We have an academy and so on and so forth. So just make sure that and the key thing is that all of our resources at Global Investor are in English, made by women entrepreneurs for women entrepreneurs, and always with that angle. So check out a lot of our resources. Now, as we wrap up, keep networking, keep putting in LinkedIn. I'm only seeing a few. Great, Aveline, Janine, Grania, fabulous. They're all coming in, stick them in there. What first step will you take to move forward on your funding journey? Type in, please. Now, we've gone through this funding journey. We've seen this whole process. What's the one step that you're going to next step you're going to take on your own funding journey, whether it's learning or whatever? Trish is saying she is awaiting funding response in the next few weeks. Yes. Okay. Fran is saying absolutely brilliant. Next step, more paying customers. Yes. Happy to connect. Okay, you're all connected, which is cool, but I want you to answer my question. Please, please, please. What's the first step you're going to do on your funding journey? Marianne says she's going to apply for an innovation fund in the next few weeks. Yes. Increase the asks, Anna. Yes. More paying customer, Louise. Yes. Keep coming. Increase the risk. CSF for women. Yes. Next step, researching angel investors. Yes. Catherine. That's it. Do up the realistic financials, paying customers, look for recurring revenue from customers. I love it. I switched you on the customers big time, didn't I, guys? I'm so happy. It's a cool thing. Fabulous. All right. So keep coming in there. Get my application treated with a GoFundMe for payments. Look up Leo. Yes. Awaiting leader grant application. New Frontiers interview. Yes. Keep going. Tell us more. What else are you going to do? The one step. Okay. And Leo funding. Add to an innovation voucher. Excellent, Grania. Brilliant. Fiona saying fascinating, definitely more customers, no LinkedIn, but they're sharing her Gmail. Okay, great. So as we wrap up here, now, how do you feel about looking for funding? Now that we've been on this journey, how do you feel about it now? Type in your answers. Energized, says Marianne. Yes, good. Fired up, says Aveline. Yes. Happy, says Claire. I love it. Happy. I love it if we make you happy. Motivated. Yes, Anna. What else? How do you feel now? Excited, much more clear. Brilliant. You can do this. Informed. Terrified, but that's good. More confident, way clearer, more relaxed, inspired. Less fear. Yes. Keep on, keeping on. Yes. Onwards. Yes. Inspired. Yes. Trish says you've explained so many things so clearly, and I would now need to explore more angel investors, which I would have not considered before. Yay! It's about opening the mind. Okay, we can do this. Yes, Claire, we can do it. So that is it. And on that, my last message are these. One and to you. I don't like pointing, but it's like handing it over to you. Think big, believe in yourself, and ask for more money. Always, Anna, you mentioned it. I think someone else mentioned it. I always say, always, yes, up, Louise. Come on, Claire. Think big, believe in yourself, ask for more money. They are my key points. Susan, I hope I'm still on time, or I hope I haven't done on time. I'm going to stop sharing, but I will be happy to answer and just make sure. Where are we, Susan? Are we good?
Just right on time. Thank you very much indeed for that.
Excellent. So if you want LinkedIn, I'm going to share my LinkedIn and the links to our website and to the directory. Check it out, everybody. And go for it. Happy funding.
Brilliant, Anne. Thank you so much indeed. And I have been agog here looking at the chat. There's been huge interaction. Just as anytime Anne Ravanona speaks, that's always what happens anyway. A couple of things that I would like to pick up on. First of all, in summary of what Anne spoke about, it's a game. It involves a rule book, players, and a prize. I was really struck by your feelings, both before Anne spoke and then afterwards. You were speaking about being nauseous, overwhelmed, excited, and now fired up. Clarity came up there a good number of times, inspired, and maybe considering avenues that you hadn't thought about before. And also spoke about the perspective, performance, and process. And she mentioned perspective is really mindset. There is a performance at the end, but in the middle, it's about being understanding of the process. She also says that when she was asking you, when do you think you'd go for this? I was also interested by your comments. For example, you mentioned key pivots on the journey, and some of you also picked up on the point that it's important to start looking before you need it. And also mentioned that investors look at their opportunities according to sector, stage, and geography. That's also an important point to mention. Would I go into a coffee shop if I'm looking for a pizza? Would I go to a car wash if I'm looking for a pair of tights? Is that if you think about it, that's also the way investors look as well, as what fit have they got with you. Then she gave this fantastic graphic of the funding menu. And she also pointed out, I picked up on it too, so did loads of you, is that the best form of funding is, of course, a paying customer. And what's an even better form, again, is a profitably paying customer. So that is, if you got that from today, that's also a really important point in terms of A, market validation, but of course, B, as well also from a funding point of view. Now, two opportunities that I wanted to point out. Some of them kind of came up in the chat anyway, but I just want to reiterate them. Number one is the trading online voucher. An awful lot of businesses are able to apply for that, but you have to start off by attending the trading online voucher session that is run by the Leo. That can be extremely informative in its own way. And the other point, I'm picking up on Dr. Orla Flynn's contribution this morning, is of course engaging with your university around research. It's certainly been a journey that I've been on personally. Some of you might have heard me speak about it before. We've applied for innovation vouchers. We're now on our second innovation partnership for our tech startup. So it's certainly one that I would encourage you to go for as well. Now, she also mentioned a range of resources. And by the way, keep the resources coming. If you have more, put them into the chat. There's lots and lots going on there. She mentioned AngelList, Gust, Crunchbase, Astia, Go Beyond, and Golden Seeds. And she said what investors want to know is who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how you're doing so. Then she gave us the detail of the 12 slides. She also spoke about avoiding the major turnoffs. And like you're all doing today as well, she also spoke about building your tribe. Loads of you have been asking us, is this session recorded? Can you access it? Yes, we are recording it right now. It will be up on the website in a couple of days on the Empower Her website. So that will be there at a later stage, all right. So don't worry about that. Don't try to take copious amount of notes. If that's putting you under pressure, relax and enjoy today, and you can always go back to everything afterwards. Okay, now, and of course, you're not leaving us at all because she is staying with us for the next really important part of today, which is the pitch competition. So let me explain the way in which this is going to work. Before I do, can I just ask the team, will you please share the link for Mentimeter in the chat now so that everybody has the opportunity to click on that before we start. I'm going to name 3 companies. Each of them are going to pitch. Okay, 3 companies. I'm going to name them. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you any context. I'm not going to say what they do. I'm simply going to give you the name of 3 companies. I'll mention one, give the name, they will pitch. Second, give the name, they will pitch. Third, give the name, they will pitch. And at that stage, it is over to you to vote the winner. Okay? Just want to make that point. So make sure and click on that link on Mentimeter. We will be opening up that link or that specific voting element. We're going to be able to do that. So what's going to happen is when you vote, that won't be visible on screen until we let at least 40 seconds elapse. It is important that you really take the time to think about who should win the pitch, okay? Now, I just want to let you know that naturally enough, each of the 3 women who are going to pitch, it's tough for them. And so by virtue of the fact that they are standing here in front of you and that they are putting forward what they are going to be pitching about is a big deal for them in their own right. So what we're also going to do, and I'm just going to make sure that I have everything here in front of me in order to do that, what we're going to make sure and do is that that we'll share their social media details, because perhaps there is advice you can give, suggestions you can give, etc. So on that basis, it's super important that we leave the power in your hands. And for that reason, I'm obviously not involved. Well, if I drop this hand, a whole load of things are going to fall. But I just want to point out that I have absolutely no involvement in this whatsoever. My sole job is to hand you over to the individual women involved. And again, I just want to check there with everybody to make sure that the link has been shared there in the chat. And yes, we are indeed. And okay. Now, as I say, at this point on, I'm only going to give the name and the business, no context. The context is over to the pictures, and then the power is in your hands to decide who's the winner. After this, after we announce the winner, I'm going to go back to Anne. Anne is going to share some feedback on what she sees, and then we're going to take a coffee break. Okay, deep breath, and that's only me. Never mind the pictures themselves. I'm now going to hand you over to Carla Rosenbrands from Barterkind.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to start off this morning with a story. 2 years ago, I was in Madrid working hard as an English teacher, but finding myself really cash poor. I was stressed out and needed the likes of a yoga class, which was something I couldn't afford. Until one day I had a light bulb moment. I thought, what if I offer an English class in exchange for yoga? And within a week, I was getting yoga, Spanish, massage, entire house cleaned. And the amazing experiences and connections that followed led me to pitching here today. I am Carla Rosenbrands, Barterkind, which is an online platform where members can swap their skills and services. So barter is the oldest form of commerce. Why would we need? I'm going to let an example explain. Sir Paul, a micro business owner, a digital marketer, and while he watched a load of businesses around him close throughout COVID, he managed to survive. But now he's on a strict budget, and he used to outsource a lot, can't afford to anymore. He still doesn't have the skills to cover all aspects of his business, in particular admin and accounts. Now imagine Ivan. He's lost his job because of COVID. So he's sitting idle with his skill set going completely unused. He actually wanted to start up his own online venture, but he couldn't even afford a consultation about it. That was until he found Barterkind, and then Matchmade. Now Ivan does admin for Paul, and Paul is getting Ivan set up online. So it's a win-win. And these guys are both playing on their strengths, so they're using their time efficiently and effectively, not to mention the money they're saving. And I'll give you another example. This one's from Madrid. So imagine Ina from Ukraine, recently relocated, but she doesn't speak Spanish. So she's finding it hard to find work and connect with people. Now picture Patricia. She's a Spanish teacher, freelance, and she finds she has large chunks of time during her classes every day. She should use this time productively, doing housekeeping and whatnot, but her problem is she absolutely hates cleaning. She has a real aversion to it, comes out in hives and everything. It's terrible. And she's considered hiring a cleaner, but couldn't allow herself until she came across Barterkind and Matchmade. Now Ina cleans Patricia's house and Patricia teaches her Spanish, which is something she could not have afforded otherwise. And she's found local friends through the arrangement. And she's educating herself, making herself more employable. So there's a huge social return here as well as financial. So as you can see, barter was a solution to these real life problems for these people. It allowed them to outsource tasks, learn new skills, save time and money, and connect with people authentically. It was also a solution for an individual, a household, or a business. So what we're creating with Barterkind is a high impact app, making services more available to all of our members, because we believe that being cash poor shouldn't be a problem as long as you're skill rich. So to be a part of this community, it's subscription based and basic membership is free. This allows you to one-on-one barter with people, like cleaning for Spanish lessons. Then paid subscription lets you go beyond these limits of one-on-one, and on payment of your small monthly fees, you're given tokens. And with these tokens, you can pay for services, meaning me and you don't have to barter one-on-one, but I can do something for you, you do something for Susan, Susan does something for me. And these trades can be done in person or online. If you have a service you can offer remotely, it's internationally tradable, so you can barter with anyone from anywhere. Now, naturally, we have competitors, but there's an issue with these. They all require or reward you for connecting your Facebook, Instagram, etc. So they're making your data available to these bigger companies. And at Barterkind, it's the exact opposite, with data protection being the most important thing. And to ensure this privacy, we're using blockchain technology so that your trades and your data are completely confidential. We are currently doing a trial phase and we have 200 signups so far and some amazing trades happening around Europe in person and online. So if you would like to be part of this and benefit from barter and be one of the first to use our developed platforms, please go to www.barterkind.com for a free sign up. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Carla. And now we are going to move on to our second pitch, which is Colette McGowan from Collaborate.
2 years ago, I had to sit down and have a really tough meeting with my accountant. That meeting was to discuss whether or not I was going to go bankrupt. A lot of factors and bad decisions had led to that point, but it was at this point that I realized I just couldn't walk away. I believed in my product. I believed in my team. I believed in the problems that we could solve and also the people that we could help. I knew that we could help business owners. I knew that we could help team members, and I knew we could help clients just like you. My name is Colette McGowan, and I am the CEO and founder of Calabro. The next slide, please. So the problem is twofold. So for the accountant, it is about the lack of time and difficulty in staying on top of administration work. And for the client, it is about not having control, visibility, or transparency over their jobs. And some of the secondary problems that the accountants experience is deadlines being missed and just falling through the cracks. And also that the time is lost repeating manual processes over and over. Next slide, please. So our solution is Calabro, which is a practice management software for accountants that minimizes administration work while ensuring transparency, accountability, and visibility. One of our most popular features is the client portal, which allows both the client and the accountant to log in at any time to see where everything is at. Next slide. Our initial target market is accountancy practices in Ireland and the UK with up to 10 team members, which is just under 47,000 practices. And then in 2022, we then aim to target larger practices with up to 50 team members. Our business model is a yearly license fee of €400 per user per year. And some of the reasons why we believe that Calabro is needed is that it can ensure that client satisfaction happens, which results in happy clients and happy accountants. And that ultimately it will save time and money for the practice, which will then filter down to the client. So next slide. We have a dedicated team of 5 in place, and we are all very passionate about solving these problems. We are currently building out our team at the moment, and we have 1 new team member start this week with another new one joining next week. Next slide. We have 3 main competitors, which are based in the UK and in the US, with costs ranging from just under €280 to €600 per user per year. And so for the feedback that we've received so far, some of the reasons why their customers tell us why we're different is that Calabro is extremely user-friendly, with one customer telling us we are simple, well done. And believe me, a simple software is one of the hardest things to do. And another bonus is that they don't need to pay for multiple systems because everything they need is in one place. Next slide. So some of our achievements so far is taking on our first pilot customers, with some signing up even before the software build was even finished. And some of the learnings that we took from our startup journey is that we just didn't do enough market research initially, and then this led to gaps later on within our development phase. Also, personally, the biggest learning for me is that we did not pivot the company sooner. I do think this was a huge turning point in the company. I believe that if we didn't do it when we did, we wouldn't be here today. Next slide, please. So some of our exciting plans over the next 6 months is to launch a pilot phase in October. And we're really excited about this because we just can't wait to get customers stuck into the software and experience it for themselves. This will then lead to our 500,000 investment round later on this year. And that will set us up to scale in early 2022. So next slide. So in the beginning, one of the reasons why I nearly went bankrupt was just not having enough visibility over my accounts. So I'm so glad to be here today, knowing that I can help prevent this for other businesses owners just like you. Thank you.
Colette, and we really appreciate your pitch today. The next person that is right up here in front of you now pitching is Mary McHugh from Irish Online Counselling.
Hi. Our story begins with Leanna. Leanna is a 52-year-old woman, mother of 2 children, one of whom has special needs. And in 2010, she contacted a service that I was working in a voluntary capacity to look for help. She had been Googling the word suicide and came upon our page. Leanna was looking for a way to die that night. Leanna was one of many back in 2010 who, with the evolution of the internet, were finding ways to access support for their mental health. They weren't able to go in and do the conventional face-to-face like many people were. But this went against the whole grain of what my training was as a psychotherapist. It went against our peers and it was frowned upon by them. My name is Mary McHugh, and in 2011, I set up counsellingonline.ie. And this was set up to help people access mental health services who, for whatever reason, weren't able to access them face-to-face. So we were given the power back to the person for them to take charge of that. How our service works is that the client comes to our page and they choose a therapist based on whatever struggle is going on in their lives. And by choosing how to work, so you can work through typing, through typing, which is instant chat, through telephone, or through video. So Leanna had asked me to become her therapist, and I had said there was no way I could do it. But she was in such a bad way that I felt I had no option but to do this. As we began to do our work, it was just amazing to see what was unfolding week by week. Leanna was slowly improving every week that we worked together, so much so that her beginnings were through typing. She then moved on to telephone. Then she moved on to just her seeing me and me not seeing her, to her then seeing me. And we worked together for quite a few years. She was on a lot of medication. So we're giving lots of people like Leanna the opportunity to be able to access. And I suppose our business has grown from strength to strength from there. We have grown 100% year on year. And with the onset of COVID then, there was a huge increase because people were becoming more aware of how to use the internet, and it was giving them great courage to access support for their mental health. In Ireland today, there are 925,000 people struggling with mental health. In the US, there are 47 million. We are at present in a global mental health pandemic, unfortunately. And the goal of counsellingonline.ie is to reach you where you're at. Our motto is wherever you are, we are. So that is geographically, emotionally, or financially. We will do our very best to meet you where you're at. Organically, we are reaching people. We know what we are doing is working. We are looking to scale our business now. We're at a point where we know that we need a robust software platform, and I suppose with my expertise to help us to move on to the next level of our business. I want to finish with Leanna. Leanna documented her work with me in a book of poetry. So this is her whole journey from the very beginnings of being locked in her bedroom, which she was. She had been struggling with bulimia, addiction for 8 months. Her husband was doing the work in the house, to where she is today. Leanna today works full-time. She is on 0 medication for her mental health. So we want to be a huge change. Our job at Counselling Online is to reach people where they're at, to empower them to be able to get their power back again. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Mary. And now we are going to get ready to make this open for everybody. Okay, so first things first, please go on to that link that was sent to you there on Mentimeter. Okay, it was sent in the chat. Can I ask the team to please share the screen? And particularly what I just wanted to point out about what we're going to do here is that we're going to share the screen, but we're not going to share the votes as they're coming in. So I'm just going to ask the team to share the screen so that we can see Mentimeter. And that's going to come up there now in a moment. I'm going to make sure that we have at least 40 seconds so that you have a chance to think through who you want to give your vote for. Now, the Mentimeter is now just on screen. Just in case you didn't click on the link, look at the top of the screen, and can you see there, you can participate in this by going to menti.com and putting in the code at the top. The code is 92489630. Okay, Now we are just at about the 25-second mark. We're going to give you another 15 seconds. Now, when I ask the team to reveal the answer, then we're actually going to see all of the votes appear at the one time. Just to remind you that there was 3 people. There was Carla Rosencrantz from Barterkind, we had Colette McGowan from Calabro, and we had Mary McHugh from Irish Online Counselling. Whew, okay, I think I'm picking up the nerves here in the studio right now. They're all affecting me at this stage. Okay, I'm going to do a countdown. We're just going to check in there with the team on the right. Are we all okay? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reveal the winner. Wow, congratulations to Carla Rosencrantz. So you can come back over here. Unfortunately, because we are in the time that we're in, I cannot physically present these to you, but I just want to show everybody that this is what she will be taking home. If you can just look at the camera there, Carla, and well done indeed to Mary also, and well done indeed to Colette. It's a really, really tough thing to do, and they did a fantastic job. So I'm going to leave these here, and we will certainly make sure that you can take them home after they've been sanitized, after I've shown them to everybody. Anne, can we now please go to you? We'll just go back to Anne.
Yeah. I'm here. I don't think you can see me yet. Let me try start. The host needs to let me back on. Okay, start my video. Okay, so can you see me now? Yeah, perfect. Okay, congratulations to all 3 of you. I mean, guys, everybody put in a big round of applause because they were all fantastic. I want to give you some feedback to each and every one of you. Okay, so let me start. I was taking furious notes here. So Carla, excellent topic, very, I think you presented it very well. And I think what would help you the next, so I love the way you used the examples of the barters, of the exchanges, you made it very real. What you can do to continue to improve, I would say moving forward, is do share some slides and show us some screenshots of what the actual app looks like. I think that's always helpful for people to actually see it. And you would have seen Colette's presentation. It was helpful for some, because we have all different learning styles. Some people need to be very visual, some are more auditory. So I would say, I think the idea is hot, the market size is hot. So you need to say, okay, this is the market size for bartering worldwide. You mentioned some of the competition. I think you need to have one slide. I've showed you what you need to have. You need to say who's doing it already and how you're different. You said how you were different very well, but you do need to show how you position yourself versus them on that slide, because we need to see that. There is a startup in Brazil who've been doing this for many years called Believe, and a woman entrepreneur as well. And that has been going on for many, many years. So you need to check her out. I would just say, check her out. So you're great at explained the business model, you explained the USP, and you shared your first sign of traction. Fantastic that you had your 200 signups, and you had your very clear call to action was like sign up to test. So that was very clear, and I thought that was very well done. So well done to you, Carla. Colette, I thought that actually you followed the slides that I did about what you need to put in the pitch super well. I think all 3 of you were very good at explaining your customer persona and their problems, and I want to give you huge kudos for that. You did it all very well. So Colette, I loved how you started off with a personal story and say, okay, this is my why. You see, you explained, this is why I set up Calabro, because I had this problem. And I said, okay, if I'd known this information, I would have gone down maybe a different path in my own company. You were very clear about the questions on the problem, the solution, the market, the team, the competitors. Brilliant. All very, very clear. The USP, the milestones and what you're asking for. You followed that super well, and well done. You shared all of that information very clearly. I would say, my particular advice to you, Colette, is have a bit more fun. I know it's serious accounting. You know, try and I would encourage you to kind of say, okay, this is hard. You know, accounting is not a sexy subject for everybody, but all business owners, we need to do it. And we're serving the people who serve the businesses. And I think position your offering in how you're upholding small businesses and to help them grow. Because if they do not have clarity of the information, they can't grow. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to continue to build on that. I loved, again, the way you very clearly started with your story, ended with your story. Very well done. So excellent stuff. And then Mary, I really connected to everything you're saying. Again, what you do is so important through counseling online. It is exploding now, and we are in a global mental health pandemic. And I'm so glad that you say it that way, because that you've got to scream the size of the problem when you did that so well. You see how she gave us the figures? The 925,000 people in Ireland and 45 million in the US. You see how that were like, whoa, whoa, this is a big problem. You see how that really gave her a lot of gravitas to what she was saying. So not just, of course, the impact of the solution and what she's helping to solve, but it's also the size of the market. So that, I think you did extremely well. And again, Mary, sharing the story of Liana from all the way through was very powerful, and how the impact of what you do, that was super important. You mentioned quickly that you're a psychotherapist. I would encourage you to say that right from the beginning. So I have set up, counseling online. I am a psychotherapist. I'm a professional at this, and I saw the need to make this, to be able to do this for more people. And that's why I've built it. And I've been doing it for years. I haven't waited for COVID to do it. I think you need to say that. So I would ask you to embrace that. That was really good. You were very good at explaining the different ways that it works. Again, if you have screenshots, even of the current app online, show them, because it helps people to see it. Also, that you get some great signs of traction. You said that you're going to be looking for funding. You need to scale now and build a more robust tech solution. That's perfect. You're ripe for looking for funding. You need to kind of show your team, build out your team, and make sure that you have some tech people to encourage the tech investors to invest in your product, Mary. Okay, so the other thing is, I thought it was very powerful the way you took us on the journey for Liana from the beginning right to the end, and how your app and your services helped to improve her life, dramatically improve her life, that she even has a life, number one, and actually then dramatically improve it. So they were my key points, and a huge congratulations to you all. I think you were phenomenal, and I cannot wait to see you go further and further. So well done.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Anne. And I have to say, the value of doing a pitch is not just the competition, is exactly what Anne has done right there. It's getting the feedback, getting the experience. I was chatting with them here earlier on, and they were saying, oh, we're buzzing, but we're so nervous. We wanted to be over. We wanted to do it now, and all sorts of things like that. So going through that process, as well as actually hearing perhaps your own feedback as well. I've been watching really complimentary comments here in the chat. If anybody has any way that they might be able to help any of the people that we were pitching, reach out to them through their LinkedIn's or through their websites, through whatever method that you can, because that is absolutely what we're here for. Now, we are at the coffee break stage. You probably need one after all of the high-paced activity that we've had this morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a break now, between now, and please be back at 11:15, when you are going to meet Brenda Romero. You're also going to meet Mairead Mackle, and we're going to have a great conversation later on after that around blockchain. Stay tuned. We'll see you back at 11:15. you.